Jay is a western Maine town whose population is still less than 5,000. Many residents of this predominantly blue-collar community work at one of the two paper mills, International Paper Androscoggin Mill and Wausau Paper Mill. The Jay website boasts that while Jay's roots are entwined with the Industrial Revolution, the feel of the town is rural, small town, making it an ideal place to live, work, and raise a family. There are exceptions to this idyllic experience, of course, with Kimberly Moreau's disappearance among them.
Kimberly Moreau was a 17-year-old high school student from Jay, Maine, who disappeared the night of May 10, 1986. She was with her good friend Rhonda Breton and two acquaintances, Brian and Darren, and was last seen around 11 p.m. at her home by her sister, Karen, and her sister's boyfriend. She told her sister that she was going for a ride and would be back in 1 hour. She left behind all of her belongings and climbed into a white Pontiac Trans Am, never to be heard from again. She was wearing a white short-sleeved blouse, a white high-top set of shoes, and blue jeans, her boyfriend's class ring. In this episode, we will discuss her case and hear testimony from her family.
The one to behold, the miracle of life in our baby girl. The first time I saw you and held you in my arms, you changed our lives and destiny from that moment on. We loved you and watched you grow into a loving, caring girl with all hopes and dreams like any little girl. Now you're gone and we all miss you each and every day. I love my daughter Kimberly, nothing more to say. We loved you and watched you grow into a loving, caring girl with all your hopes and dreams like any little girl. Now you're gone and we all miss you each and every day. I love my daughter Kimberly, nothing more to say. Since the day you disappeared, we've shed many tears, wondering what happened throughout these many years. Each night I pray to God once again to let me see my little darling daughter, baby Kimberly. My little darling daughter, baby Kimberly.
Welcome back to Stories from the Shed. My name is Adam, and with us, a man who doesn't have the heart to bust a grape in a fruit fight. Jake, how's it going?
I'm doing good. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm glad the week's finally over and we're here about to start our weekend.
I really don't have any complaints. I had 2 days off from work this week. It was kind of nice.
That's right. So we're actually ready here to put together a good episode, I think.
I hope so.
Yeah, we actually brought a guest in on this one here, one of those revolving guests that we mentioned earlier. Ashton, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
How's it going, guys? My name's Ashton, as Adam said already. Some stuff about me. I'm not originally from Maine, so I'm not too used to the cold yet, but...
oh, you'll get used to it.
I don't think I will.
Yeah, you're dressed in what, 3 jackets? 2 or 3?
2 or 3, yeah.
And a sweatshirt, nice hoodie,
Yeah.
camo hoodie. You're fitting right in.
Still pretty cold, though.
That's
Yeah.
right. Camo hoodie. Shed life.
Yeah, basically.
Actually, I got this from Adam. He gave me this. Him and I went ice fishing one time, and I think I was without a hoodie, and yeah, so
Yeah, Adam's good like that. He gives away everything he's got.
that's because he only owns everything.
Yeah, right, exactly. And not only that, but he's got multiples of everything. He's got like 4 camo sweatshirts.
So I was wondering about this light actually, because I have never seen one of those anywhere, and this guy whips it out. Then he pulled it down and stretched it out a little bit. I'm like, whoa.
We gotta be ready to go in the shed. Plenty of light.
Yeah.
We got the fights on tonight on DAZN.
Yeah, on the 12-year-old Kindle.
That's right.
All right, so a little bit about myself. I'm originally from Virginia. I moved up here a good 10 years ago. I have a 6-year-old daughter, probably smarter than everyone sitting around the table right now.
I totally 100% agree.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
She is incredibly bright.
And I'm just trying to get into a lot of the outdoor sports that everyone does here. Actually, my buddies got me ice fishing, and I'm ready for some of that when it comes up. But I'm ready to talk about some of these cases, and they actually didn't tell me anything about it, so it's brand new to me, and we're going to take it serious and, just try to find out a little bit more.
Yeah, Ashton's coming into this just as blind as you guys are.
And as our first guest, we had to think, who are we going to bring in as our first guest? Who's going to break the guest barrier here? And we thought for this one, you'd be a good one because the story's about a daughter and really a father as well.
Yep.
So,
Yep. A father spending the last 30 years of his life trying to find his daughter.
It's pretty sad. Well, I hope we could do something to, maybe open some eyes, or maybe bring some good ideas that someone didn't think of, or anything. So I don't know anything about it. Like he said, I'm just as blind as you guys. So
well, actually, you might because as you mentioned earlier, you're starting to get into doing some of the outdoor things that people do here in Maine.
Right.
And we brought you hiking a couple times out in the western part of the state.
Right.
And I don't know if you remember, but as we were driving and we got into, I think it was on Route 133 in Jay. Remember, you start to see.
The pictures of the girl.
You remember? Yeah. Well, that story's about her.
Yep.
Close to home.
Close home. What about? How far would you say is it from the shed?
I want to say Jay is what, like 40 minutes from here?
Maybe 40 minutes
Maybe,
from the shed.
something like that. It's not incredibly far.
No. So Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about this? Actually, no. Before we dive into the story here, tonight we're drinking Shipyard Prelude Winter Warmer.
You almost forgot about the beer.
I almost forgot about the beer. It's tasty. This is a great beer.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's brewed right here in Portland, Maine.
This one doesn't look as Christmassy as the beer we had last week.
It looks coastal,
but it definitely
Christmas.
tastes a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, I like this
hell
one.
of a lot better.
I like this one. How many Skelly fingers you giving this?
This one's getting fucking 5 from me, man.
5?
Yeah.
5 out of 5.
This one's good.
How about you?
I would have to say 3.5.
3.5.
3.5.
3.5. What's it missing for you?
You know what? I just noticed that the beer has some chocolate in it, and to be honest, I'm not the biggest fan of chocolate. And actually, I guessed that it had chocolate in it, which you can tell that I don't have chocolate often because I picked it right out.
Yeah, I don't taste that at all, but I eat chocolate every day.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So
actually, yeah, this beer is. It was funny because I could actually smell the chocolate right when I opened. It's delicious. It's
wow.
Yeah, this beer it's rich. It's a nutty, full-bodied English ale.
A true sign of a fat kid is when you can't smell chocolate because you're eating it all the time.
And it's got a ABV of 6.7%, so drink these in your own shed.
Yeah, just not too many.
Yeah, I'm going to give it 4 out of 5 Skelly fingers. So Jake, why don't you tell us a little bit about, why don't you start diving into today's story?
Oh, God, where do we start? As you guys heard in the intro, we're going to be talking about Kimberly Moreau today. She was 17. She was finishing up high school, and she's from Jay, Maine. She went missing after going to hang out with her friend and 2 acquaintances that they had met during the day. Her sister last saw her climbing into a white Pontiac Trans Am, and on the way out the door, she told her sister that she'd be back in an hour. She never came home. It's been 86.
32 years.
32 years now, and no one knows where she is. So we're going to kind of talk a little bit about this case today and
That's terrible.
Yeah.
I got to tell you guys, this is something that happened. I was 6 weeks old when this happened. But to be honest, it's something I've known of my whole life. And every time I drive through, Jay, Canton, Livermore Falls, and I see those flyers. Or not flyers, really. The what would you call them?
They're
Lost posters?
Yeah, they're kind of similar to like.
Yeah.
It's.
Every time I see him, you stop and you think about her and about their family. And part of researching this, you kind of realize how strong that family is.
I think someone mentioned to me that when the flyers start to get worn down, the father goes out and replaces them.
Yeah, he does.
Worn down or fall off or.
I had read something when I was doing research for this that he's responsible for like 50,000 flyers over the course of 30 or 32 years. That's a lot of time. It's a lot of flyers.
It's a dedicated dad.
Yeah.
Just listening to that, he never got over, this happening.
No, just
probably never moved on with his life.
Oh,
but
just in the last.
That's just me guessing.
I don't know how anybody could get over it.
Right.
And it isn't like, I was reading and watching some of the videos from the family, and one of Kimberly's sisters says, her mother died 2 years after Kimberly went missing of cancer.
Yep.
And she says, it's one thing when you're watching a family member, die of cancer and die, and you know what this person died of and you're kind of ready for it. It's another thing when
you just don't know.
Your sister's ripped out of your life
with no explanation.
Vanished.
Yeah.
Really. So why don't we discuss Kim a little bit? At the time, her stats were she was born in 1969. She was 17 years old at the time. She was 5'7" and 135 pounds. She was a white female, blonde hair, blue eyes. She also had a surgical scar on her back. At the time that, when you're searching for it, that could have been crucial information. She was also, and I think you might have said this already, that she was wearing her boyfriend's class ring.
Yes, she was wearing her boyfriend's class ring. She was wearing a white short-sleeved blouse, white high-top shoes, and blue jeans.
Jake, why don't you explain to us a little bit about the circumstances surrounding that night a little bit more?
So I think it was the day before I had read Kim and her boyfriend had a fight over something. I don't remember exactly what. And they were supposed to go to prom the following day, and they had decided that they weren't going to go for prom.
I believe what had happened was her boyfriend, Mike Staples, and this is speculation from the community. I don't know if this is actual fact, but I believe what had happened was Mike Staples was caught in bed with Kimberly's friend.
Okay, that's new news to me.
Yeah, I believe I had heard
Wow.
that somewhere. Yeah.
Okay, 3 pages later, and I didn't get that. Okay. Yeah, so they had a fight, and Kim decided that they weren't going to the prom, so they broke that date off, and Kim had decided she was going to go out with her friend Rhonda for the day. Rhonda and Kim at some point met up with two acquaintances of theirs, Brian Enman and Darren, is that Jowdry?
Joja.
That's a horrible name.
Terrible.
Jowdry. It's so hard to say. Change your fucking name.
Yeah. Fucking lousy name.
I know, for real. Anyway, they had all gone out together. They had been driving around in Darren's new Pontiac, allegedly drinking, doing cocaine, doing a bunch of stuff. They were basically just hanging out for the day. At some point, Darren had to go back to work, so Brian drove Darren to work and then took Rhonda and Kim back to Kim's house. Kim dropped her stuff off, said to her sister, "Hey, I'm going for a ride. I'll be back in an hour."
I think what she dropped off was her purse and her makeup, which the family says
it was all her personal belongings.
Which her family said is uncharacteristic of her because Kim, they say, was model beautiful. She had met with a
modeling agency
in Boston earlier that year. And a girl like Kim, they say, would not have left her house without her makeup. She was the kind of girl that if you were to visit her early in the morning, gone to their house, she wasn't going to come out of her room till her hair was done, her makeup was on.
Wearing her makeup.
That's right.
Until she was all dolled up and perfect.
Kind of important to remember that because leaving her belongings behind, if you're going to classify her as a runaway, which we now know she is not.
Why wouldn't she have taken it with her?
Bingo. Why wouldn't she have taken, her stuff with her, stuff that she normally would have had with her?
Right. So anyway, she came home, dropped off all her stuff, told her sister she'd be back in an hour, and got in the Trans Am and left. From there, we don't really know what happened, and that's what we're going to be focusing on.
Yeah, I mean, there's the story's changed quite a bit.
Yeah,
from what I understand, they drove around after they'd gone back to Kim's house. Her sister was there, and her boyfriend, now husband, had oh, sorry, would you mind beering him?
Not at all.
Thank you. We beer each other here in the shed.
Makes life easy.
Anyway, so
Thank you, sir.
as they were there, they looked out the window, and
Oh wait, these are twists, aren't they?
they're twist.
Oh,
They're
thank
twist.
God.
Her sister and her now husband look out the window, and they see the Pontiac, and they don't know who's in the car. They don't question anything, and Kim takes off. Now, the story goes at that time, it was I believe Brian. Brian was driving.
Brian was driving the car.
Because they had
Yep.
already dropped off Darren at work.
Correct.
And so in the car you had Brian and Rhonda, who are I think they're boyfriend and girlfriend.
I believe Rhonda was Darren's girlfriend.
Was Darren's girlfriend, the other guy.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I don't know how important that is, but she was dating one of the guys.
Yeah.
So I guess what happens, okay, is Brian drops off Rhonda at home, I believe is the story, or drops her off somewhere. And then he takes off with Kim somewhere else to have consensual sex. Now, some people will say that she was at a sandpit party. Other people speculate that she might have been at a party hosted by a teenager that was the son of the police chief of Jay.
Too many stories, though. No one.
Yeah, we're going to kind of dive into some of these different avenues in the story.
Okay.
But either way, this is what Brian Edmonds says, and he's the gentleman that was alone with Kim. Supposedly, if you follow this story, is the last person to see Kim alive. And so Brian says they go drive somewhere. They have consensual sex, and he stresses that it's consensual sex. And that he drops her off at the... Now, this is where his story changes. He says he drops her off at the base of Jewel Street, where Jewel Street begins.
Now, is that the half-mile story I keep hearing?
That's
or is
the
that okay?
Yeah, that's the half-mile story. And she supposedly walked half a mile back to her house. Now, the thing is, the family says that they don't even say that's not likely. They say that it didn't happen at all because
Okay,
Kim
wait. Question. It's May, and it's
Nice
potentially
out.
potentially.
No, it's not. It's
Potentially.
38 degrees that night.
Was it?
38 degrees.
Wow.
Okay, so it's cold
That's how
And
much I know
it's-
about Maine.
and it's late. Why would a 17-year-old girl want to walk
Well,
home?
we didn't even
at-
get into the time, Jake. He says it's
Well,
1 o'clock
well,
at this time.
Well, what I'm saying is she came back at 11.
right.
So if you're leaving at 11, you're not going to want to walk home any later than 11.
That's right.
I don't care where you live.
But you got to keep in mind this is 1986 in Jay, Maine. There's no crime. In fact, to this day, Jay boasts about having 0 homicides ever in their history.
Wow.
They have one missing person. That would be Kimberly.
Yep.
Jay's the
reading
place
that.
to live.
Well, I don't know. I mean, we're going to kind of dive into some of the stuff that was going on in Jay at the time. But anyways, Jake, so where were we with this? What was I? We were talking. Okay, so they had consensual sex, and he dropped her off
At the bottom of the street.
at the bottom of Jewel Street. Now, the family says that this is highly unlikely. Not just unlikely, I'm sorry, that it was impossible because she was afraid of the dark. She had only a blouse on, and it was 38 degrees. She was the kind of person, I guess, that if she was visiting somebody down the street or across the street from her, she would call home and say, hey, flick the light on and watch me come back. I mean, she was that afraid of the dark. So at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's creepy.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially in a small town
Especially
like that.
it's quiet. There's nothing going on.
And
Yep.
it's cold, and from what you mentioned, she was wearing, and the
It was
temperature outside, it's just something sounds wrong. But
Yeah, and I mean, I tend to believe the family. They would know Kimberly
who would
better
know
than
better, right?
Exactly. They would know the family would know Kimberly better than anybody else.
That's right.
And if her father, Richard, says she didn't do it, she didn't do it. But anyways, that's how the story goes. Now the times will change, right, Jake? He says at one point Brian says 1 o'clock, then it's quarter to
It'll
1.
always change.
And then at one point he says he dropped her off at 3:45, and then I think at one point he says he dropped her off at a park.
he didn't have any reason to be watching his clock, so why would why?
Right. I mean, maybe. I mean, who knows what happened? But that's supposedly how the story goes.
Right.
Now, if you're gonna buy that story, okay, then what would have happened during that half-mile walk?
She was supposedly still upset about the fight she had with Mike and wanted to walk home to think about it. That's according to Rhonda's story.
That's right. That's right. I remember reading that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, she wanted some time to think, and she would walk the remainder of the way home. Supposedly, it doesn't sit right with me. Doesn't seem right.
Doesn't seem.
I'm just not. I don't know. I can't see anyone wanting to walk home past 11 o'clock at night. I don't care where you live. That just seems like a really bad idea.
My question is, why does the boyfriend stress the consensual sex part?
So
much?
it wasn't the boyfriend. It was this Brian Edmund guy.
Oh, okay.
The guy that had been him and his friend and her had been and Rhonda
Had all been hanging out, driving around the Trans Am, getting
all day.
drinking, doing drugs, whatever. Her Kimberly's dad later comes out and says that he now knows that his daughter was a social user of drugs.
Yeah,
he didn't know at the time, but after she disappeared and all these things started coming out, he figured it out.
I mean, you know how it is. You were 17 once, you know.
Right.
You're trying different things, kind of a time to experiment.
It's normal, right?
It's
Right.
normal. It's
It's
more of a
normal.
thing like that over.
It's not a reason to judge her character, though.
No,
Right.
and I think, you know, her character, the more you look into this, she was a good kid, and she comes from an outstanding family.
Well, here's a good judge of her character too. She's maybe not judge of character, but just good judge of the kind of person she was. She had interviews with a modeling agency in Boston. She wasn't someone who didn't have a future.
17
You know
years
what I
old.
mean?
She was
Right.
getting her life going.
Right,
already.
exactly.
And young, ambitious,
Yep.
I'd say. Yeah. So anyway, if you believe the story that she was dropped off, then something would have happened to her. I guess at that point, if you're going to accept that she was dropped off a half a mile from home, then you'd have to say, well, she either ran away. If that were the case, her parents had bought her a car. Okay, this was parked in that driveway.
She
in their
didn't
driveway.
take her car?
She didn't
Nope.
take her car.
She
Wow.
left the keys to her car with all of her belongings at the house when she came home.
Her makeup, her purse. So she didn't run away. I mean, I don't know. We're just speculating
Right.
here. But I would say she didn't run away. Then it would mean somebody would have potentially done something to her.
Snatched her or something.
I mean, and there was, you know, a few shady people in this community, and there was one guy, Jake. I don't know if you.
Yeah, there was a guy that owned an arcade right outside the high school. His name was Calvin Tidswell, and he was friends with Kim's boyfriend at the time, and he had a pretty extensive criminal record. He spent 12 years in jail on drug charges. He was charged with involuntary manslaughter and unlawful firearms possession. The community in Jay knew he was a criminal. They knew, or they had a pretty good sense of who this person was and how they would treat
My
them.
question is, what is anything he's done in the past? How does that link him to her? You know?
Here's where it gets interesting. So he owned an arcade right outside of the high school, and all the kids would go hang out at the arcade
Okay.
outside of school, and he would try to befriend these kids, and he would get close with them, and when he would get close with them, members of the community would say that he was very controlling, and he wanted their attention all the time. And
Did
everything,
he have any police record of doing anything to?
not that I was able to find.
But I had heard in an interview with Richard Moreau.
No, well, okay, go ahead.
You know, I had watched an interview with Richard Moreau and what he had said was that this Calvin guy, he would give the kids little bits of drugs. I don't know if it was cocaine or whatever, kind of get them hooked on it. And of course, these kids couldn't pay, so he would have, you know, trade it for sexual favors, and he didn't care if it was a boy or a girl. It just.
So are we assuming that? I mean, we already admitted that the dad knew about his daughter, you know, being a, what do we say?
Not at the time. Not at the time. This all kind of came out in the wash during the investigation, searching for her, that she was a social user.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
he didn't know that. The family didn't know. I mean, it wasn't like she was doing these things all the time.
So I'm just trying to figure out if we're saying that this guy who, you know, the arcade guy, if he was the one who got her hooked to drugs, or if she was already on drugs. I'm just trying to figure out, you know.
Okay, well, here's the thing about Kim. When when her personal belongings were given to the state police to go over and, go through evidence and whatever, they found 4 pills in her purse. And at the time, a lot of girls in high school, and this is straight from her sister's mouth, were taking these little pills, and they were called Crossroads. And what it actually was speed.
You could buy them for 25 cents a piece.
And they were super easy to get right at school. Yep. And everyone was doing them to stay thin and whatever. So the cops kind of wigged out. Were like, oh my God, your daughter's a drug addict, blah, 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 blah. And it's not even remotely close to that. She was using them to stay thin and whatever. That's probably not the greatest idea. But everyone was doing it at the time, according to her sister.
Kids do stupid shit all the time.
Yeah, exactly. I've done plenty of dumb shit.
Kids nowadays eat fucking Tide Pods. So.
Yeah.
So it's fair to say maybe she had a habit before she ran into this guy, right?
I wouldn't even call it a habit.
Well, maybe she experimented before she ran into this guy.
I would assume,
probably.
Yeah.
So
or
we
maybe with this guy's help.
Okay, maybe with the guy's help, maybe without though.
Maybe.
High school life,
Right.
So really, you got to keep an eye on this Calvin Tiswell.
You do have to keep eye.
I mean,
on.
I stamp him as a piece of shit automatically.
You're so aggressive.
Well, I mean, what kind? Jake.
You're so aggressive,
Jake,
Adam.
This guy.
He's right though. This guy's he has kids, and I have kids, so he understands.
He's fucking feeding the neighborhood kids drugs in exchange for blowjobs and shit. Supposedly is what Richard's saying.
Reading that story.
I heard that in an interview that Richard had said that he was for favors. What does that mean?
Well, since we're gonna go down that route, let me read you guys a quote from a 2004 Sun Journal article. The Sun Journal interviewed a family friend named Barry Romano, kind of like Ray Romano, but with a cooler name, and maybe not as successful of a TV show. Tidswell has always been a suspect, said Barry Romano, a friend of the Moreau family. He's kind of a control freak. I have a teacher friend who knew him back in junior high school. I'm going to continue to read this, but back in junior high school may not be a perfect tell of someone's character when they're an adult, but it does kind of, when you hear this, it kind of makes sense.
Okay.
I have a teacher friend who knew him back in junior high school, and he'd say things like, fuck you, right to this guy's face. Back then, you could put your hands on a kid, so he picked him up right by the hair and dragged him off. The parents would just say, yeah, he's been doing that a lot lately. I think his parents were scared of him.
I had even heard, and also in an interview with Richard, that this guy was on somebody's property, and they called the game warden to get him off. And when the game warden showed up, he got into an altercation with the game warden and bit him in the face.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Wow.
He's a fucking loose cannon.
So it's speculated that Kim might have actually gone to see him with this group of people that night. Wasn't he throwing a party or something?
I don't know if he was throwing a party. Maybe he was. I mean, I'm sure. I'm sure he always accepted the company of children.
Of course.
Yeah, it seems like that kind of a swell guy with a lot of love to give.
Yeah, who doesn't want visits when you're a drug dealer? I guess.
Good point on that. I guess, but
it is what it is.
So you can't rule this guy out either. If you're going to go with the fact that, or not the fact, if you're going to accept the story that she was dropped off, then you got to at least consider this guy.
Right.
I still want to hear some more suspects, though. It's because, I mean, we already know that the first person you hear, rarely ever the person
we don't know. We don't know. This guy
Right.
is still, considered someone to keep an eye on.
Sure.
But anyways, kind of going back a little bit, and I hate to do that, but we should probably talk about the lack of help they were getting from the police. I mean, they called up that night to report her missing.
Oh my God, it was terrible. They told them to wait 48 hours before you reported her missing.
That was acceptable back then. That was normal.
Even today, still, don't they make you wait? Oh no, they make you wait 24 hours today, right?
I don't know if they make you wait at all.
I think it's 24 hours before you can report a person missing. It has to be a full 24 hours.
Really? I didn't know that.
I do believe.
Yeah, I don't know, but I know they just real quick. She was probably a runaway. She'll probably be back in the morning. That kind of business. Now, the following day, they called again, and they reported her missing. And the police really didn't want to do a whole lot of investigation right away. In fact, I don't believe they classified her as a missing person until the first 4 months into the investigation.
I think that was because of, I don't know if that was because of a computer error or an operator error on the computer. I remember reading. I remember listening to the Vanish podcast, and by the way, they don't need our plug, but if you guys want to hear another really, really, really good podcast on this topic, go on iTunes or Google Play or whatever you guys use, Stitcher, whatever the fuck. Download or subscribe to The Vanish. It's a podcast dedicated to missing people, and it's incredible. The lady that runs it does an excellent job. It's very thorough. It's very interesting. The episode that we listened to regarding this case had quotes and a whole phone interview with her dad and her sister, and it was really, really good. She does a really good job over there.
Is that what gave you guys the idea to actually do this show?
No way. This is something that's been on my mind my whole life.
Okay.
Driving through there and knowing the story as a kid.
Of course.
Yep.
Close to home.
Yeah.
Close to home.
In fact, we stumbled upon their podcast. I don't want to keep going on about their podcast, but we stumbled on their podcast as we were researching the story, and we kind of found it to be a good resource for us.
Oh, absolutely. There was more information on that podcast than there was in a lot of the YouTube that I watched, and a lot of the research or a lot of the reading that I did with all the news articles and different things you see online. They weren't nearly as helpful as that podcast. It was just so well done because you have the testimony from the family, and you can get a really good picture of Kim from what the family says about her.
And one more time, you said it was Vanish?
The Vanished.
The Vanish.
Yep.
So to kind of go back to the police and such, some people reported that she may have been to this party at a pit, while others also maintained the story that the police chief's son, who was a drug, and this is speculation. I don't want to, we don't want to get no hate email from any PD and J, but we had
JPD don't show up at my house.
This is straight.
Don't show up to the shed.
Not to
there
the
is
shed.
nothing for you. Sorry.
There's a lock on the shed
But
door. We're not home.
And we're all packing.
You need a warrant.
Anyways, this is a domicile. And go back to
This is my private domicile,
There's
and
a
I will
secret
not be
code
harassed.
to get in anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So that night,
you have to be part of my Snapchat premium.
That night,
Don't report me to the IRS, please.
That night, the son of the police chief supposedly was a drug dealer and was also having a party at their residence. Which, if you're going to follow the story that Kim may or may not have used drugs that evening, that's another place where she could have gotten him other than Calvin. Would have been at that party. And that would explain why the police were really slow to react, into the search and such. I mean, come on. What are they doing? It takes 4 months. Oh, they had an administrative error. The paperwork got brushed underneath something. What the fuck are they doing? It's fucking Jay Maine. You got a kid missing? What are you sitting at Dunkin' Donuts all day doing absolutely nothing? Going to the fucking McDonald's and flirting with a cute waitress there? I mean, what are they doing?
Wait, what fucking McDonald's has waitresses?
Or whatever.
Yo, I want to go to that fucking McDonald's. Can we get Claire to work at that McDonald's?
You know the
Yo,
backwoods.
I am so down for that.
You know those backwoods McDonald's are going. They got some shit going on.
Yeah, like them fucking backwoods gas stations with the full-blown restaurants in them.
Check the ones out at Millinocket. Great, best McDonald's I've ever been to.
Yo, where can we plug Claire's place? What the hell is that place called? She's the greatest.
That would be the Irving in Farmington.
Is it what the hell is the restaurant called?
It's a fucking Irving gas station. Anyways, Irving gas station, Farmington. Irving gas station, Farmington. Go see Claire. Fucking right. And you know what? If you see Claire, give her a good tip. Tell her the boys from the shed sent you.
Yeah,
That's right.
like she's gonna know who the fuck we are.
Anyway, so the police were real quick to say, that she was a runaway and such, and this and that. They didn't want to search, and that might explain why they were not really quick to react. If the chief of police is got something to hide, he's gonna do everything he can to not expose that his drug addict son is hosting a party at their place.
It's a lot of speculation.
It is speculation,
It's a good
and
point,
like
though.
we
It
said,
is a good
we
point.
don't want. We're not saying that's what happened.
Can we get back to the arcade dude?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I only had a couple more things to add into this, and then I figured we'd move on to this child, whatever, the dude that is in mass and whatever.
Yeah, that another piece of shit.
Yeah, that guy was fucking crazy. So it's speculated that Kim may have visited him or visited a party where he might have been at.
This is Calvin.
Whatever. Yes.
Yeah.
The night she disappeared. One more thing I have to add to him before we move on. Kim's dad actually had an interview with him set up in 2004. Unfortunately, Calvin got his ass jailed on drug charges before the interview could take place. So we don't really know where that went.
Yeah, unfortunately. And while you're looking at a list of different, and this is another one that we have to mention. We don't necessarily think this guy had anything to do with it, though you have to mention this guy, Louis Lent.
Yeah, this guy was, I don't even want to read this. You want to read through that?
Yeah, let me find our
This is bad.
fantastic
Actually,
friend.
you know what? We're at a 33-minute mark. Can we take a beer break?
Let's take a beer break here.
All right, sounds good to me. We're taking a beer break, guys. We'll be right back.
Eating out in the summer makes sense to me. Get a patio, catch a ball game, it's all good. Going out in the winter makes sense to me. It's always a little warmer than where you came from. It's stunning.
And we're back. Wasn't actually a beer break, but now it is. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Loving these preludes. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this asshole Lent?
This is Louis Lent.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Louis Lent.
Ass Lent.
Yeah.
Old Louis.
Ass Lent.
Louis. You know what? I
Dingleberry.
have a feeling looking at pictures of Louis, I'm sorry, he's a piece of shit. And he kind of looks like a turtle a little
Life.
bit.
Not only that, but he looks like the living embodiment of those fucking gag goggles you get at like the Dollar Tree with the fake mustache and the googly eyes and like the excessively large frames. He looks just like that.
So sadly, because I'm blind like our viewers, I didn't get to see a picture of this guy.
Do you want to see a picture of this guy?
I
I'll
kinda
bring one
do.
up right now.
I kinda
I'll let.
do.
Okay, well,
I
I'll,
like to
well,
make
listen.
fun of him
I
too.
fucking hate Louis.
Well,
I'm just
listen.
gonna say.
I'll let Adam start talking about Louis. I'll bring up a picture and then I'll take over from there. How about that?
Sounds good.
Okay, can we call him Screwy Louis?
We can call him anything but your friend or our friend or anyone's fucking friend. No one should be friends with this guy.
This fucking guy looks like the embodiment of gag glasses.
Thanks for stealing my joke.
Well, he told me to talk about Louis here.
No, you're not wrong. Ooh,
Louis.
Murderpedia.
He's high on suspect list, but not ruling out.
All right.
High on the suspect list, but not ruling out.
All right. Here's a picture of him for you, Ashton. I'm sorry, podcast listeners. I
Sorry,
know you
guys.
guys can't really benefit from this.
You can certainly look up
Definitely was on To Catch a Predator.
Yeah, absolutely. He looks like he's had multiple conversations with fucking Chris Hansen,
He
dude.
showed up to more than one house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They fucking chased him down.
This is a guy without a soul.
He's a weirdo.
This is a real bad
So
guy.
so tell us more about this guy.
So this guy, right?
Well, number one, it looks like he's got the thickest glasses on the face of the planet. His
Could
nose,
see
his nose
ants
sticks out like
smiling at him.
the tip of his nose sticks out like a fucking like Rudolph's nose, except it's not red.
I'm gonna
but
let
it's, like,
Jake finish.
So big.
Because Jake, even though I really hate this guy, I think Jake hates him a little more than I do.
I
Jake
don't
really-
know. I don't know. You have kids, but I just hate. Okay, well, hate's such a strong word.
I fucking hate this guy. You know. Anyways, let's keep going.
You know what, Adam? I think we're just gonna leave it.
Yeah,
at that.
Yeah.
Yep. He's not high on the suspect list, thank fucking God, but he had the nuts to tell police when he got arrested at some point that he had done something to a child in Maine, but he wouldn't provide any information about where, when, how, who, anything. The only child to be missing in Maine at the time that he said this, though, was Kim Moreau. And that's the reason he comes up on our list, because you're going out saying these things, and of course you're going to trigger some sort of investigation.
Wait, so did he say the child that he did something to was missing, or did he just say he did something to the child?
I believe he had just said that he had done something to a child in Maine, but he didn't give a detail of who the child was, what the name was, what town it was in.
I don't even think I read if
Anything
it was a
like
boy or
that.
a girl.
I think, I don't remember reading any
Yeah.
of that either.
But when they asked him about Kimberly, did he say he had nothing to do with that?
I don't know if they asked him about Kimberly.
I didn't find anything on that.
I didn't find any info on that either.
No.
I'm sure
So
they
did he
did.
even get questioned? So how does he become a part of this story? That's my question.
Because then part of his here's the thing is I've since we've decided to do a podcast, I started really researching serial killers. And a trend that I find with serial killers, I know we're kind of going on a side note here, but these guys drive a lot. They spend a lot of times in cars, and they cover multiple states. And this guy had killed children, in New York, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, maybe. And, supposedly he'd done something to a child here in Maine. They drive around, and they cover multiple states. And he'd been up here and on his sick little prowl looking for, an easy target, obviously. Like a coward.
Well, here's the thing. Number one, I'm offended because I like to drive, too. Are you saying
No.
I'm a
No,
child
I'm just
serial
saying
killer?
These guys, they don't go and, go find a street and kill 6 or 7 kids on the same street. They drive around to try to not get caught. You start doing things in a huge circle. The bigger your circle, the less of a chance that it's going to get tied, especially once you start hopping states, multiple states. Now you're talking multiple jurisdictions, different police departments, different
Correct.
state police,
Yeah.
all the way up. And the more we dig into this case, you're going to see how much the police don't really communicate that well, especially in this time.
Jurisdiction, like you said.
Yeah.
Well,
They don't have Twitter to tweet everyone their shit.
Right. Well,
You know what I mean?
anyways, you can't really rule this guy out.
No, you can't really rule this guy out, and it's because he had said that he had attacked a child in Maine, but wouldn't give any details. So to answer your question, Ashton, I do believe they probably asked him about Kimberly, but there was no information for us to gather on it.
So was he released after he was questioned?
Oh, Jesus fucking Christ.
This
no.
guy killed a bunch of fucking kids.
No, dude.
Oh, okay.
No.
Scum of the earth.
So he confessed to 2 murders. He murdered a 12-year-old girl, Sarah Ann Wood, who was a resident of New York, and James Bernardo, who was also 12, who lived in Mass. And Louis Lent was, I want to say he was out of Pittsfield, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Something like that. He was a janitor at a movie theater. And he had a really good reputation with the community. Everyone described him as a really friendly guy, was really, really welcoming.
So I'm
a
wondering
normal
what he was
person.
arrested for, but I bet you're going to get into that.
Well, here's another thing with this guy is that investigators allege that he may have been involved in murders all the way down to Florida.
Yeah, weren't there connections up and down the East Coast?
All over the East Coast, yeah. He also blamed his actions on demons who were allegedly...
inhabiting my alter ego.
Yeah.
So when they stopped him or he was picked up, does anyone know what that was for?
Oh, that's a great question. Now I feel stupid.
Probably killing children. Would be my guess. I mean, people are investigating these dead kids. I know. I'm sorry.
No, the honesty is there, and
Well,
that's why
I mean,
it's funny.
It's
Not funny. Dead kids are not funny. I just want to get that through to everyone right now. Jesus fucking Christ.
No.
I don't want my
No.
inbox to blow up with, you think child murder is funny.
we
No, it's not
we
fucking
don't.
funny.
Here's
You
the
have
thing.
to appreciate this guy's honesty, though.
Here's the thing. As we've been kind of learning how to do this podcast, as we've been evolving, Jake's been the one that's been, like the Wizard of Oz. He's been the guy behind the curtain that's been putting our shows together, cutting in the music, cutting in the some of the media that we're putting in, and so that's kind of freed me up to have the time to look into a lot of this stuff. And so I don't remember exactly where I was going with this, but
Are the beers kicking in now?
the beers are kicking in. But what I'm saying here is that I don't know what I'm saying here.
You don't
Well,
even know what you're saying here. Why don't I just take this over from here?
Yeah, go for it.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
No, just like him, I forgot.
Oh, son of a bitch.
Serious.
You're alone, man. We're just gonna sit down and shut up.
Yeah, I got. All right, I'm gonna sit here and talk to myself now.
All right, why don't we keep talking about some of these key players in this event?
Okay, so we were talking about Louis Lent.
Yeah.
Louis Lent confessed to
Hey,
two.
I think I was asking why he was picked up in the first place.
Right,
Okay.
and I don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, neither do I.
Okay.
But he confessed to the 2 murders of Sarah Ann Wood and James Bernardo. When he was talking to investigators about Sarah Wood, he refused to give them the location of her body. He knows where she is.
Yeah.
You guys want to know his logic behind it? Why he wouldn't give them where her body is?
Yeah, let us know.
Because she's not buried alone.
Oh.
She's not buried alone.
Why does it matter? I mean, you're already in jail for life.
Well, right, but that makes you wonder, is she buried? That's a fucked up thing to say.
Yeah, I don't like this guy.
No one should like this guy. Currently, he's serving 25 to life with no parole in New York, but he also has charges for murder in Massachusetts, where he murdered James Bernardo, and he's serving the rest of his life in Massachusetts with no chance of parole. Thank God.
So we won't be seeing Screwy Louie ever again?
No.
Okay.
Do you think he had anything to do with this particular case, Adam? I mean,
well...
It's weird that he comes out and he says that he had attacked a child in Maine but wouldn't give any details.
The thing is,
kind of strange.
It's easy to believe that people doing crazy stuff are responsible for the crazy stuff that's happening. Do you know what I mean? Like,
right.
So he's in jail for doing some crazy stuff, but that doesn't mean he's responsible for everything going on. You know,
right.
It would be easier to pin it all on him just to make people feel comfortable, but that's not
right.
You know, that's not the way it should happen.
And they don't have any actual evidence that he did anything.
Right.
Just this very vague.
Right.
Oh well, I attacked a kid in Maine.
Basically,
but we're glad he's locked away either way.
We know he's capable of doing it, but
right.
That doesn't mean he's responsible.
But here's the thing: if you're Screwy Louie, and you already know you're never getting out, you know, you did it, you're never getting out. Why wouldn't you just say what you did? You know this family's hurting. You know this father, these two sisters. You know they're still hurting from this. This is their reality.
Yeah, this is their life.
Yeah, you did. You know, if you did it, why wouldn't he say something? I don't think he did it. You know, I think that these guys, they're sick in the head, these guys like Screwy Louie, and they like to play games like, oh, well, you know, you maybe heard the story about Kim, and maybe I can kind of mess with them a little bit because this is how these kind of people are. Well, I did do something to a kid in Maine, but maybe he didn't. I mean, maybe that's all bullshit. Yeah. Anyways.
Not that I want to attribute any positive, not that I want to make him look good, but can I add a couple things in his little profile here that I got written down?
Yeah.
And we can kind of move on from him at this point.
Yeah.
Police did note that he seemed pretty upset when he was talking about the murder of James Bernardo. He would get visually upset, and weird note for a cop to make anyway. And I feel like that kind of showed maybe a little bit of remorse, or maybe even a little bit of realization of, holy shit, what did I do?
Yeah,
why am I sitting in this chair? What the fuck did I do to my life? And he even wrote an apology letter to a girl he attempted to kidnap back in 1994. Her name was Rebecca Savarese, Savarese. However you pronounce that. Don't ask me.
Close enough.
Yeah, close enough. I've had a couple beers.
Savarese, maybe.
Savarese, yeah.
Savarese.
Something.
Anyways.
I don't think either of those two guys, Louis Lent or Calvin, had anything to do with it, though, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
We would like to point fingers and be like, oh, well, like Ashton said.
Yeah.
It's easy to point fingers at the bad guy that we already know is bad.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, these are the kind of guys that tend to do this anyway, so let's just put the blame on them, kind of a thing.
Right, exactly.
But maybe they did.
Right, and maybe they did.
And maybe they didn't.
Right.
The evidence,
we're all just speculating anyway.
Right.
That's right.
Speculation.
The evidence that I've read doesn't point to either of them being responsible for it. If I have a good feeling, and I feel like I have an all right feeling on this, I've done enough reading where I'm comfortable making this call. If someone did something to her, it's someone that was close to her that night. It had to have been.
Yeah.
There's no way around that.
Yeah.
Because they were the last. These two people were the last two people to be seen with her, and they were responsible for her way home. At least one of them was.
So what happened when they were questioned?
Well,
That's a great question. I know.
but
I know.
Before we jump to that, why don't we kind of look at these as characters? You know, these at these players in this. You know, we talk a little bit about Rhonda. Talk a little bit about.
Well, before we talk about Rhonda, let's talk about the boyfriend, because
Yeah.
the boyfriend was cleared of responsibility, I guess, or just cleared by police very, very early on in the investigation.
Mike Staples.
Yes.
Were they doing lie detector tests around this time?
They were.
They were?
They
Okay.
were. Yeah.
That's good to know.
Yeah, and
see.
you know what? He probably, I mean, who knows? I mean, he probably was somewhere, and there's other people to vouch for him. Yeah, Mike was here, and it was a solid alibi. And when you have a solid alibi,
That's all you need to be clear.
that's all you need a lot of times. I mean, hey, if this guy, maybe he was at work, maybe he went to the prom, but they were at some, they're real quickly to be able to say, yeah, you know what, this guy wasn't around. He had nothing to do with this. Then at this time, then you got to also look at maybe Rhonda Breton. Now, this girl, she became friends with Kimberly maybe, 6 or 7 months prior.
Yep.
She started, I don't know if she became friends, but she became a closer friend, is what I've read.
Yep, I think that's what Kim's dad had said in that Vanish podcast we had listened to many, 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 many times.
Yeah, and Kim also, she told the police the same story, I believe, that she was dropped off a half a mile from her house.
Yep.
Just and with the same story that she was upset about what had happened between her and Mike Staples, the boyfriend.
Yep.
Yeah.
So they all rode together when they headed back to her house when they dropped her off half a mile. The friend also, she
Well,
was there.
There's so many discrepancies because what's funny is that she says that, but what we've also heard was that she was dropped off prior to Kimberly being dropped off.
I
So
believe Brian had even said
Ooh.
that
Yeah.
he had dropped Rhonda off, and it was just him and Kim at one point.
so these
So
are
the friend
reading
can't
that.
confirm that she was actually dropped off half a mile from her house.
yeah. Well, let me tell you what, the friend can't confirm anything else because she died in a hit and run in California in 2009.
Yep.
Yeah, she was allegedly. I mean, I don't know, speculation, but she was allegedly a drug addict and an alcoholic.
This was, and she apparently, this was, I think, something else I had heard on that podcast. This is all stuff that that Kim's father had come out and said. Shortly after Kim had disappeared, Rhonda started to go downhill real quick. She became an alcoholic,
And
a
that's
drug
what I was
addict,
thinking
and-
when you said that is, maybe her losing a friend led her down that path. You know what I mean?
Right.
Maybe
Is
when you
it-
know something and it's
Well-
eating away at you.
Oh man.
Thank you. Exactly.
Sorry,
It's exactly.
but,
No,
I
that's
mean,
no,
it's
that's
just-
perfect. That's exactly where I was
When
going with that.
You're
That's
living
perfect.
you're living the story all week. You kind of start thinking how the players might play, and
That's
I bet you
true.
that when if you
And
know
it's new to
something,
me, so
it's speculation. But if you know
Right.
something and it's been
Eating
a
at
number
you.
of years at this
Yeah.
point,
Right.
almost 30 years.
driving you crazy.
Well, it was enough to drive her to go move. She moved 30 miles away.
Yeah.
2 years after this event happened.
Then she came back to town in the J area, and she moved to Florida,
Florida.
very shortly thereafter.
Yep.
Then she came back and went to California, and she was killed in that hit and run in
Yeah.
2009. According to Kim's dad, she was in the process of getting her kids back because she had a couple kids at that point when she was living in California, and they had gotten taken away by the state. She was in the process of getting them back, and she was going to move back to Maine, and it was all set to go. She was just biding her time, and she died in a mysterious hit and run.
Yeah, Richard actually speculates that somebody may have driven out to California
No way.
to commit this hit and run to prevent her from potentially coming back to Maine to discuss, what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, crazy, huh? Everything kind of.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah. What else do we know about Rhonda? Anything else? That's pretty much all that we got on
Did
Rhonda.
her and Kim have a fallout? Like how were they before?
It was
Kim
never
went
presented in anything that I read.
No, and in fact, I mean, she was with her that night, so it's safe to
Right.
assume that there wasn't, but I would doubt that Rhonda did anything to her. Maybe Rhonda might know what happened. Maybe Rhonda was even there when something happened, because we don't really know what happened. All that we can say is that Kim went into that white Pontiac and took off.
Yep. That's
We
all.
don't-
That's all we know for sure.
For sure.
Did Rhonda pass a polygraph?
Did she take a polygraph?
I don't know about Rhonda taking a polygraph, but I can tell you that Darren and Brian did take polygraphs. And from what Richard says, he believes them that they both failed. So if they both failed, then that would mean that they would, and in that speculation, but if they both failed, then that would mean that they both might know or took part in what happened to Kimberly.
Okay. So
Anyone interested in why Rhonda never had to take a polygraph but
Well,
admitted to being there that night?
We don't know if she took a polygraph. At least I didn't see anything on that.
I
Jake.
didn't
No.
either. But I have a question, and I lost it, so give me half a second, and I'll figure it back out. Go ahead.
Sorry, the Brewskis, but
The
Brewskis. Darren, one of the acquaintances, he supposedly was dropped off prior to Kimberly being
Going back to the house.
Going back to this.
Yeah,
like
he had
Rhonda,
to go
but
to work.
still given a polygraph.
Well, probably, to be honest, probably because he's a guy, and I don't know. But we don't know if Rhonda had taken a polygraph or not. We
That's
don't know.
true.
We didn't find out. I mean, this was 32 years ago, and we're searching the internet today. So,
Which would
yeah.
still make sense on why they probably only gave the guys a polygraph.
well, there's that bias,
Yeah,
right.
right.
Always. And
Right.
I mean, I guess you could say likely so, because usually it's guys that are
Right.
doing,
Right.
these violent crimes.
Well, men make up the majority of serial killers and criminals.
yeah.
Then that's just an honest statistic.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about
You know?
Brian Edmond, supposedly the last guy to see Kimberly alive, if you believe this story, right?
Mr. Consensual Sex.
Mr.
Yeah, Mr. Consensual
yeah.
Sex. Yeah, that's what we're gonna call him from here on in.
Consensual sex.
I
Yeah.
think does consensual sex mean
Mr. CS.
if they're unconscious and they can't say no?
He is the lowest level
You know?
trim level of a Saab 9000.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if this guy, I mean, I know we keep going on and on here, but this guy, he keeps stressing consensual, and all I can picture is a woman that's unconscious or unable to
Give consensual.
give consent or to not give consent. I mean, when you're
Right.
talking, well, they were drinking and doing some drugs and stuff, Some people believe that maybe this guy even, and it's speculation, might have, him or others that were involved in this might have given her even additional drugs on top of it to cause her to overdose.
And on top of that, from the picture that we get to build from Kim, and she just having a boyfriend, it just all of a sudden being sexual with a new guy, just seems kind of strange.
No, it's true.
yeah, right off the bat.
Right.
But to Brian's credit, he has no criminal record.
No,
Okay.
he's got nothing. He is squeaky fucking clean.
In fact, the police even describe him as being cooperative throughout the years.
Yeah, I'm not going to use the word the sentence they've been bugging him, but they've been chasing him for the last 30 years trying to, hey, you might know something. Fucking poke.
And I don't
Tell
think
me what you know.
I don't think he ever denies knowing anything.
I don't.
That's what Richard says. Says he's never once denied knowing something. He just doesn't talk about it. But we also got to look at one other key element to this. We got to look at that Pontiac. Now, what do we know about that, Jake?
We know that it wasn't searched until fucking almost 20 years later.
Wow.
Yeah. 18 years later.
And
Well, no, what?
18 years, yep.
I
sorry.
think it was
3 owners.
4 months later.
3 different owners.
Was that
But-
a mess
well-
up in the computer program?
Well, no,
too?
you got to say 4 months later, it was given a visual search.
Was it?
Yeah,
I
it
didn't
was.
come across that.
I did come
Okay.
across. I think it was 4 months later. It was given
what
a visual
took so
search.
long?
Hold on. What did the visual search consist of? Yeah, it's white. Yeah, it's a Pontiac. Oh, it looks like it has a Trans Am sticker on it.
Probably there isn't a giant puddle of blood in the trunk.
Oh, okay. Well, that looks good too, but you can pretty easily clean that up. Hey,
You know what I mean? A visual is just what you see.
So how
but-
come this guy wasn't searched?
Well, the car.
Why wasn't the car searched?
great question.
I don't know what they had
will-
for forensic science back then. Maybe that
Even
was
still.
standard, but
Well,
it
when
just
you-
seemed kinda-
Eyeballs
yeah.
did the job back then.
Well, when you think about it too, Kimberly wasn't even put into the national missing people thing that we talked about for what 4.5 months.
Yeah. And if you believe that
Sounds like somebody's covering something up.
Right. Well, that's what I was just gonna say. If you believe that there was a party at the chief of police's house, then it would make sense that everything would just be delayed like this.
Right.
Because you can't link it back to that house. If you link it back to that house, then you've got the chief of police involved in a drug event, in
hosting minors,
hosting
drinking,
an
doing
event where-
drugs.
and something happens to one of them.
Yeah.
This is a
Yes,
small town.
That doesn't look good.
This is small town Maine.
Yeah, less than 5,000 people.
That's right. So, anyways, Jake, where were we here?
Oh, we were talking about the car.
About the car, yeah. 18 years later.
Yeah, it
That's
didn't
when
get
they-
searched for 18 years, and it went through 3 owners. I remember listening to a clip Richard basically wigging the fuck out, going, how can you not search the car? And then state police say, well, we can't find the car. And he goes, what are you talking about? You have the VIN number of the vehicle. You know who owned it at the time. We have a whole database where all this information is stored. Who was the last registered owner? When did it transfer names? How come you can't look any of that up? And then a week later, they had found the car. And this was 18 years after Kim disappeared.
And I believe that was somebody
years.
that was in the police department up in Rumford, 30 miles away.
18 years is a lot of time.
So the car had been sold to someone else?
It had been sold to two different people.
It had been through 3 different owners at that point.
The owner, which was Darren.
Yeah, and then 2 more. And then 2 more, and then the cop? Or was it?
No, I think it was 1 more and then the cop.
Are you? Okay.
There was 3 owners. Three owners total. So it would have been Darren.
Or had it been through 3 owners, so then it would have been the 4th owner?
No, it was on the 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
Either way, 18 years you're not searching the vehicle that you know she was last in. That is so much time.
And then 5 days after someone making a big deal out of it, it's found?
A week after 18 years, Kim's dad makes a big stink about the car not being searched.
And they find it just like that.
You got a motor vehicle.
Found the car.
You got a police department. You got a state police. You got a motor vehicle bureau. You can communicate and find this car. You got a VIN number. You can find this car.
Yeah.
You know.
And even if you can't find it, okay, well, the last time it was registered was 5 years ago. You can get in contact with the last registered owner or the titled owner to that vehicle, because you have to submit all that information when you go to get your title. You have to put, I don't know if you have to put a phone number. I don't think I've ever had to put a phone number on any of my titles, but you have to put the current address, the
all
name,
this
all
information that links right back to you.
Exactly. So why weren't you doing that 18 fucking years ago? I cannot wrap my brain around that.
Well, you can if you think maybe there was something to hide. And I'm speculating. I got to say that.
I don't like your skepticism.
I'm sorry, but but why? And I got to go back to what I said earlier in the show here. The police are not up to much. This isn't New York City. This isn't Chicago. There isn't like the police in Jay are doing a bunch of stuff. Like I said earlier, how many homicides was there in Jay? And is there today?
Zero. There's literally zero homicides.
And there's one missing person. This person that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Miss Kimberly Moreau.
Yeah. The cops are not that busy. They could have been on top of things. Things could have been, people could follow through and double check. Ashton and I, we work for a financial institution. Everything's double checked.
Everything.
Triple checked at times.
Checked.
And you'd like to assume that the police operate the same way.
Right.
But when they don't seem to care, or maybe they're trying to hide something, this is just kind of fishy. I mean, I've got to just say this because we're tearing the story apart. We're looking at all different angles here. Right?
I hope so. There's 3 pages of notes here. Spent a lot of time writing this up.
Going out in the winter makes sense to me. It's always a little warmer than where you came from. It's stunning that life will disappear. Isn't it stunning that life will disappear?
Let's finish up with Brian, and then we'll move into the searches on his property and
some other stuff.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Where do we leave off with Brian? We were talking about how he was described as cooperative throughout the years, been very no nonsense with the police. Just he understands they have a job to do. I actually remember reading a quote on one of the articles that I had read and helped put together this info packet here. That he feels that he knows that cops are out there just doing their job, and we'll see the end results. And maybe after all of this, if they don't find anything, maybe they'll leave me alone. Do you think he feels that way because he's just getting tired of being pestered with something that he doesn't have any involvement with? Or do you think he is saying that because he just wishes it would all go away? Or do you think he knows something? What do you guys think?
I think regardless, life isn't that easy for Brian. I had heard that, those signs that Richard hangs up everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's one at a telephone pole at the base of Brian's driveway. So every day when he leaves his house to go to work, he gets to look at a picture of Kimberly over the past 32 years.
That
Nice
was a
little reminder.
Yeah, that was an
Yeah.
impressive plant by Rich. That was a good idea.
Yeah. Well, Richard seems to believe that he failed a lie detector test. And like we said in episode 1 about Ayla Reynolds, I'm not huge on lie detector tests.
Me neither.
Yeah, you're not either? Okay.
No, not at all.
They're not admissible in court, so right there, let's not even
Right.
really take too. I mean,
We don't even have to talk about it.
we will talk about them on this, but we don't know exactly if it was found that he lied or not. We know that Richard thinks that he lied, is what I've heard.
Basically, a lie detector test is speculation.
Yeah, we'll take it for what it is. Either way, I mean, he is cool. I know to keep going on and on, but he is cooperative. So I don't know. I think he might know something. I've been reading this all week, and my gut says that Brian knows something.
And what's his record look like?
He is squeaky clean.
I just feel like he was a young guy. Maybe something happened, and he knows something. I can't really say why.
Ooh, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I mean, squeaky clean record.
Yeah, nothing on his record.
I mean,
Nothing that we found.
Things happen. Accidents happen.
things do happen. But
Accidents happen.
From what we know about the guy's past, we at least got to give him the benefit of the doubt. You know what I
I'm
mean?
not saying he's a bad guy necessarily. In fact, him and Richard, they're in communications.
Yeah,
You know?
Richard asks him to. I know he had. Well, I've been led to believe just through reading and listening to that podcast again that Richard asks him to come forward if he knows something. He goes, even if you just say it anonymously, send an anonymous tip in. Help me find Kim.
I wish I knew what questions he failed on the lie detector test.
Absolutely. That'd be great to know.
Yeah. Well, I don't think he's talking about it. It's not public information.
I don't think so either, but you know what I mean?
But that's what we got on him. Other than, why don't you tell us a little bit about the search?
Yeah, they searched his property in August 2015, his Canton residence. They used ground-penetrating radar to search for different... What does that search for? Does it search for depressions in the ground?
I think what can
How does
happen
that-
when
how
a
does that
body is
work?
buried, I think they call it, what do they call it? Clamated burial, something like that. Anyways, I don't know. I've had a few beers anyways. But when a body's buried, what I think happens is as it decomposes, it causes abnormalities in the ground. Okay, so you got these they're geologists from the University of Maine, right?
Makes
And
the grass look fresher, probably.
Well, no.
It's like fertilizer.
No, I'm saying over 32 years as this
what I
body.
was thinking.
Well, listen, this has been a long time. Okay, this isn't like they're searching a week later or a
Right,
month.
right.
This is several years later. This is more like 30 years later. Okay?
Yeah, this was back in 2015.
What they're
So this was
29 years later.
years.
So what they're searching for here, okay, is more like, I think it's a radar that finds pockets, and they found 5 pockets on during that search, I believe, right?
I have no idea.
I believe I read that they found 5 pockets.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, what they had is they had the state police and with these giant long metal rods, what I saw online, punching holes into the ground to release if there's any trapped gases from a decomposing body so that the cadaver dogs, could
Yep.
smell it. They had backhoes digging holes to try to stir up any kind of gas that might be trapped from a body that's been decomposed.
I believe the cadaver dogs got whiffs of something too.
Well,
I
that's
remember
what-
reading that.
I didn't read anything, but that's what I heard. I had read that Richard had said.
Oh, okay.
But Richard actually wasn't allowed on the property.
No, he had
Why
to
not?
stay.
Well, he's not part of the investigation. I mean, he is. This guy is relentless.
Yeah, didn't he sit across the street from the
But-
property
but
or like
legally-
very close? Like I think he sat
couldn't get
literally
involved.
as close as he
Legally, he couldn't get involved. I mean,
Okay.
he's not a cop.
Right.
This guy is.
He's a concerned dad. That makes you almost a cop.
He's a warrior. This guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he gets up every day, and this is.
could. He has done more for this search than any government, police, anything.
Well, then the police. Yeah. Well, let's bring the story back a little bit. So Kim was missing, right? 2 years later. or even before then, the police are not really helping much. Kim's mother, Patricia Moreau, she wrote a letter to the President of the United States, then Ronald Reagan, asking for help. Because what happens, and you know, we're just starting to do this podcast, kind of an investigative kind of thing. If you want help from the FBI or from the U.S. Marshal and such, you have to get local police to sign off on it, right, Jake? Kind of a thing.
Yep.
So
Yep.
if you want the FBI involved, the local police have got to okay it first.
And
So
here-
that it's out of their hands, or what?
Well, I think a lot of it is to go back to my speculation, if you got a local police that doesn't want the FBI, the U.S. Marshal involved, they're just not going to okay it.
Okay, now I wonder why they would want the local police's approval to do a search there. They are just in the case of the FBI, they're a federal branch. Wouldn't their say have more pull than the local police department? But I wonder if that has to go, if that goes back to giving power back to the states and letting you run your own show.
I believe it to be that
You
way.
know
It's
what,
a chain of command. It's a chain of command where I think for the FBI to get involved, it's the local police have to ask for it. For the U.S. Marshals to get involved, I think, and I'm not certain. You know, you can let us know in our email, but I believe for the U.S. Marshal to get involved, it has to be something that's between states.
Is that really?
I think so.
Huh.
I think so. I'm not certain. You know what I mean? I'm not a cop.
If any of you guys listening know more about this, please send us an email, because Adam and I are kind of looking at each other like, I really wish I knew the answer right now.
Either way, all we know is that everything continued to get blocked. And from what Richard says, the chief of police wouldn't even allow this to get into the news. He kept saying that Kim was a runaway. She's a runaway. Don't even bother with it. She's a runaway. She'll show up, kind of a thing. And as Richard and Patricia, who was alive at the time, and the two sisters, and I believe their name was what, Diane and Karen.
Karen.
You know,
correct.
they were Kim's older sisters. They were all pushing for this. You know, let's get Kim out there. Let's get everybody aware of what's going on here. And this is what was happening.
You want to tell us about some videos that popped up on YouTube?
Yeah, to kind of, I believe, let's take a look here. Now, this isn't necessarily something that we believe to be 100% authentic, but it is part of this story. So I feel like we got to talk about it. So there was a YouTube channel that was created, 00B4A56. This is probably a hoax, okay? But this was in September of 2015.
How many years after the disappearance?
Well, she disappeared in 1986, and so this would be 2015. So this is
29 years.
29 years.
Okay.
The year that they checked Brian's property.
So 29 years later, a
Correct.
video on
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, there was 12 videos that were posted. These were cryptic videos. Now, to those of you that don't know what that might mean, it's like what it kind of looked like to me was the movie The Matrix, you know, with the numbers and the letters kind of.
Moving.
Cryptic messages, kind of deciphered. This letter means that number. This number means that letter.
Wasn't it all written in either binary or like hexadecimal type of weird,
Who was it sent
weird programming
on
type
YouTube.
numbers?
This was a YouTube video.
Just
Yeah,
out
Jake,
of-
you're absolutely right. It was like programming type numbers.
Yeah.
And it was on YouTube. They've been able to decipher some of these. Now, what it was that it would show what is believed to be authentic VHS recording. Not VHS, but camcorder recording from May 10th, 1986.
The timestamp is May 10th, 1986.
Yeah, and they believe the footage to be authentic.
Here's the thing I remember watching one of the videos with you, and the video supposedly had a shot of a car sitting in the driveway.
Yeah, you're a car guy. You
And,
look at them all day.
And I am the car guy, and I can tell you right now, this video that we watched did not have a white Trans Am in it. It was definitely an old school kind of video. It looked like VHS quality. It had a video of, I want to say, a blue house in the background, like a dark blue house in the way back, and then there was a house on the right side of the screen that was in front of that one, and there was a black car of some sort in the driveway. And speculation was that it was the Trans Am. But when you look at this picture and this video quality, You can very clearly see that it's black, but the way the shadows are coming down on the car, the roof or the hood looks white. The sun's beating one way and it's beating right on the hood, so just the reflection of the black paint makes the car look
And
white.
of course, the picture added in with that just.
Well,
Right.
it's
hard to
it's
tell.
a grainy footage that's 32
Right.
years
Yeah,
old,
right.
29 years old at the time. But I saw a white vehicle. But after Jake said that, I really looked and I was like, you know what, you got a point.
Yeah,
and I changed my mind. It is a black vehicle.
When you look at the fenders and the very front of the bumper in that video, you can tell the vehicle's black because it's very, very, very dark. And the only part that you see that looks white is on the very top where the reflection would be coming down from the sun and just,
Okay.
Now to kind of go back to the cryptic messages that were on, one of these videos, right? It said one of them said, "Trying to cover my tracks and revealing things to clear my conscience."
But even still, it's a black car instead of the white Pontiac. So
Right.
Right.
And I couldn't even really tell you what kind of vehicle it was that was in the driveway. It was
Weird.
just a black car. It's just the video quality was not great.
I don't think it matters.
What's weird to me though is why would this video have anything to do with Kim? Because it was shot during the day. It's very clear during the day. You would never get night quality anything out of a camcorder.
Unless if you're going to really examine this video, and it's not a white car, we don't think, but let's just say it is, right? Let's just say it's the killer's car kind of thing, and you're assuming that it's these guys that
here's
did
the
it.
thing.
Why? Then it would be Brian. Why would Brian?
Why would it be Brian?
Not Brian. Darren rather.
Why would it be Darren?
He would be the owner of the car, and if that is his car, which we don't
Well,
think
right,
it
I
is.
understand that, but there was nobody in that video.
Yeah,
There were no
Well, here's the
people
thing.
in that video except for maybe one person walking to the house out back in the very background.
Why? My thing is that it doesn't make sense. Is what I'm
No,
trying to get around to.
I don't.
It would be, it either would have been Brian or Darren that would have done this, but why would they have done this? And to be honest, in 2015, not that older people don't know how to use computers and know how to use YouTube, but in 2015, I
They
find it
would have been older
highly
guys.
unlikely that these guys, either of them, one
were
of them,
capable of making a
hey,
encryptic message.
let's jeopardize our freedom here.
Well,
let's come
I'm-
up with some crazy message and put this online and see if anybody can decipher what we did.
Well, I'm gonna counter that and say that it's very possible that these guys. I don't think age has anything to do with it.
No,
and I
it's
say
not.
that-
It's not impossible, but why would they do it?
Well, why would they do it?
And if you're
maybe
50 some
maybe
odd
to
years
do
old-
exactly what that message was saying.
I would
I'm
say
trying to
age
get-
might play a
Well,
role.
I see what
there
Jake's
is
saying,
something
though.
to say to that, but I come from a perspective where I grew up learning computers from my dad. My dad is 50. He's born in 64. What's that? He's 50.
No,
he's 54 this year.
I see
and
what
he,
you're saying.
And he is extremely computer savvy, like way more than me. If he sat down with a book, he could code you an app. He's extremely computer intelligent.
I'm
Yeah.
willing to bet your dad's one of there's a
One
big
of very
percentage,
few.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of very few.
And we work around people like this, who, who are of an older age.
Well-
but again,
Well, even still, I'm not of an older age. I use a computer all day at work, just like you do.
Yeah, but you
Jake's
don't
our
code
computer
apps.
guy. Jake's our editing guy. He plays with cars all
Yeah,
day.
hi guys. If it sounds like shit, blame me.
You know what I'm saying, though? We do certain things at work. I'm not an expert. I know I can do some financial stuff on a computer because that's what I've been trained to do.
right.
But anyways, I think we're overthinking this. I don't think that this has anything to do with Kimberly.
I don't believe so
If
either.
at
No.
most it's just some douchebag that's just like, oh, let's just make some stupid video to stir some turds.
Okay, well, here's another question. Whose houses were in that video?
And how they link it to the disappearance of Kimberly? That's what I'm trying to
Timestamp.
figure out.
The timestamp on the video.
Yeah. And there was another one, the final video, same timestamp. It was a video image of the inside of a bathtub at the drain and at the what do you call it, the faucet area of it. It showed that for a few seconds and then it flashed, "You're next."
Yeah, that just sounds like someone being a douche.
Yeah,
think
sounds like
so,
a
too.
sounds
Seriously.
like a douchebag,
Yeah, someone
putting
just
salt in
trying
the
to.
wound.
Yeah, well, and are there any other cases? Just a good question that we probably should have done some research just to follow up. Was there anyone else that went missing on that night across the entire country?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question, because clearly something, if this person is going about and writing these messages and doing these weird things, they wouldn't, unless you're really, really, really sick in the head.
Oh, and there's people that are that sick in the head to just say, I'm going to fucking make some stupid video.
Okay, well, maybe where I'm about to go with it isn't really relevant then, but I just feel like I don't see anyone making this for fun.
There were people that would call
know what I
Richard
mean?
that would just say, hey, we got clues on what happened to your daughter, and we're not going to tell you.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Well, it's
and
the
when
same,
I heard that,
I'm sure that happens all the time.
that's
man.
the same
Oh,
kind of
for
sick.
sure.
It's the same
All
kind
the
of fucked
time.
up mind that would call Richard and say that kind of crap.
Yeah,
that would
when
make
I-
a stupid video.
When I was walking through Thorncraig today, listening to that podcast again, I got fucking grumpy when I heard that. I'm like, that's such a shitty thing to do to someone. You're missing. This guy is missing his daughter. He's been missing his daughter for fucking 32 years now, and I don't care where it is in this 32-year timeline. You don't call someone and say, I know where your daughter is, and hang up. You don't do that to someone. That's not okay.
Yeah, no. And another thing is, so I think we can the three of us rule this video, this set of 12 videos that was only on for a few weeks and then was deleted. Can we rule those out?
Well, before we rule them out, was there any other video that had caught your eye having to do with those 12?
No, they were stupid. It just didn't really seem.
Okay, now just a quick follow-up question. Are there archived versions of these videos online?
I found one YouTube video that showed 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
I don't know how they got them. I found some information about them on Reddit.
Okay.
But other than that, I mean, it just seems like maybe just some stupid
Some
shit
stupid
that somebody
kids,
put.
maybe.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm ruling
All
it
right.
out. Ashton,
right.
are you
I'm
ruling?
ruling it out.
What do you think, Jake?
All right, I'll rule it out. But
Yes, but it was notable. It's something worth mentioning. So something I've got to mention here. Now, like we said earlier in the show.
can we mention one more break?
Oh yeah.
I'm sorry, guys. We'll be back.
Eating like shit on the weekends, making good days a little better. I guess I had myself a little Oreo, a little ice cream, never hurt no one. It's stunning that life will disappear. Isn't it stunning that life will disappear? And half the time the world is stunning when I need a little wake up. And half the time the world is stunning when I need to be made up.
So I think there's one more avenue we got to look at here. And this is, I got to say before we even dive into this one, this is straight speculation. Like we said earlier, we're not that far. The Shed is not that far from Jewel Street, which is where, Kimberly
About 40
lived.
minutes.
About 40 minutes. So we know people that live in that area. And, when we decided to cover this case, this story, I talked to a number of people that I know that live in that specific.
Can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
What's crazy about this case is you probably have had just as many people who are still upset about it as we did with the Ayla Reynolds case. Like I've got friends in that area too, and when I told them about the podcast, they say don't even bring it up. It's still a really sore topic.
This one here?
Yeah, this one, and again, similar to the Ayla Reynolds case, where it's so sensitive still.
Yeah, and the reason why we bring this up is because, at least for me, I'd love to see those missing posters come down. I'd love to see that for
absolutely.
Richard.
Absolutely, it would be a victory for him.
A victory. This guy's been hanging those posters up. We drive through there every time we go hiking.
Posters.
I want him down, and he wants him. His whole family wants him down, and that's why we're doing this. And it's just something that needs to be continued to be investigated. This is somebody's daughter. This is somebody's sister. So, anyways, but to go back to, that local, what I'm going to call local gossip, because this is straight speculation. I know somebody that it knows an individual that is a relative of Brian Edmond. And this story that this person told, and I don't even know if I should even be going this route, told the person that I know is that she overdosed on drugs that night. I don't know if it was the guys that did it, if it was something that she had done accidentally to herself, but that there was an overdose and that they had brought her body to an area where there was a pig farm and they had fed her body to pigs. Now, I don't know. Again, there's been no remains found. It's been 32 years. This is a terrible thing, and I hate to even say it. I hate saying this, but this is something that I heard, and it's something that is a possibility. I mean, she hasn't been found. Nothing's been found. There's been no blood in the car found. I mean, It was 18 years later.
Right.
But still,
it's not out of the realm of possibility at all. Remember I sent you this week another possible story topic, and it was about a guy who did something very similar to people and did it for many, many, many years.
And unfortunately,
it really does happen.
Yeah, unfortunately, when you hear a story like that from a local resident of Jay, you have to research things, and it is possible that, I've read this, and I'm not going to get into detail with it, but, one pig could eat a man within 24 hours. So imagine if you throw a 130-pound woman in with 6, 7, 8, 9, maybe more pigs.
Is that true?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to keep going on and on about this because it's just speculation, but it is something that is a possibility, and it kind of goes into maybe something that you can consider when we, towards the end here, when we start to speculate on what may have happened. Jake, maybe you want to lead us off with what you think happened that night on May 10th.
What I think happened?
Yeah.
I think something horrible happened, obviously. I think the overdose story sounds kind of along the lines of what happened, unfortunately. I don't really want to believe the local gossip that you shared with us because that just seems like a horrible way to go. But what I think happened, I think she probably did overdose. I think maybe she took too much. Maybe someone gave her more than she could handle.
Yeah.
I really don't know, but I think along the lines of what you shared with us is probably what happened. Someone panicked.
I think I have to say the same. I think she overdosed because, after looking at everybody's background and realizing, these guys got a squeaky clean record, and the other people they assume had records, but you couldn't really link to what was going on. Well, it seemed like she might have overdosed, and a bunch of kids might have panicked, and you never know what happened.
Absolutely, and I'm not. This is not a justification, but I can see it happening because in my head, I remember being 19 and 20 years old and going to parties and doing all this dumb shit and drinking way too fucking much. And you have that one person that gets way too obliterated, and the whole group freaks out. What do we do with this person? This person has very clearly had too much.
So were the other kids tested for drugs in their system?
I don't know if they did any drug tests.
They admitted saying that they were driving around drinking and doing some drugs, but that they didn't know what happened to Kimberly.
Huh.
Yeah, the story is that they had been driving around doing coke and drinking during the day, and then Darren went to work, and then all this, the whole story unravels. What do you think, Adam? Are you thinking along those lines too?
Jeez, I hate this.
I hate this story. Okay, well, I don't hate this story. It's just, it's so sad. It's so incredibly sad.
I hate that I can't really wrap my mind completely around this. I feel like, shit. I feel like maybe there was drugs involved. I think maybe she was given maybe she was given more without her knowing. And I think maybe she did OD. I think that if you're going to continue to force the thought of consensual, maybe he took advantage of her being, and this is me speculating, maybe he took advantage of her situation of being drugged out, and maybe it went a little too far. Maybe they didn't kill her. Maybe they didn't, the traditional stab, strangle.
But they didn't save her.
But they didn't save her.
Right.
And I think maybe something happened. And I think you got some young individuals involved here, 25 years old and younger.
Yep.
And maybe, there's one guy in town where you get your drugs from. Maybe there's that one guy, that older guy that likes to hang around with the young crowd. Maybe the gossip on him is true. Maybe it's not. But this is a small town in Maine. What are you going to get drugs everywhere? No, there's a couple of guys where you're going to get those kind of drugs from. Maybe this guy knows a little something. Maybe he knows where those drugs came from. And maybe that's why he's not talking. But I think that maybe she did overdose. And maybe these people panicked. And they did something with the body. Now, the Androscoggin River is not too far away. It's spring. The water is rushing pretty fast. You know that. It's rushing hard in the spring. It wouldn't take much to,
Look at the falls.
Throw a body in there, and all of a sudden it's gone forever. So you can't rule that out. Maybe the pig thing's true. I mean, I'd like to think it's not. I like to think that they're gonna find the body while Richard's still with us.
I fucking hope so for
him. For the whole family.
Listening to him talk on, they don't need the plug, but listening to him talk on that podcast is just, it's heartbreaking. All he wants, this guy is in his 80s now, and all he wants is his daughter to come home. He doesn't even care. Okay, I can't say he doesn't care, but he's succumbed to the fact that she's probably not alive anymore. He just wants to know where she is. He's got a burial plot for her and a headstone all set up in a little cemetery next to her mom and next to his plot, and
next to her grandfather.
He just wants to put her to rest before he goes, and I really hope he gets to. I hope he gets some answers.
Yeah.
I really do. It's awful.
I like to think that eventually we're putting a little update on our social media that they find her.
That would be awesome.
That'd be great.
And same with Ayla Reynolds.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there's some similarities between, episodes 1 and this one where...
Yeah, they're both sad.
Well, yeah, they're both sad, but where it just seems like everything's...
it's open-ended.
Everything's delayed. I mean, episode 1 about Ayla Reynolds, they didn't declare it a crime scene for multiple days. They didn't really start looking for Kim for multiple days. I feel like you really got to start hitting the ground hard right away.
Right.
When
Put
the families,
some pressure on.
When the families say there's something wrong, and I know that was in the 80s, but this was recent with Ayla Reynolds. When the family says there's something wrong,
this isn't
listen
in
to
their
them.
character. This
Yeah.
is out of the ordinary. Take
Right.
it
So-
serious.
Nobody knows the person better than their family, and some people might argue that, but here's the thing. Your family, the people that you are around every day when you're that young, know you the best, whether you think it or not. They know your mannerisms. They know how you're going to react to certain things that might get said, certain events that might happen, because they've been around you the longest. They don't have to know everything about your personal life to know how you're going to react, how you go about your day.
Yeah, and her family's going to continue to search for her until she's found, So I kind of hope that if there's anybody that knows anything about what happened to her, if you're listening to this, maybe you were involved, I think it's time that, if anybody knows anything, they say something. Let's just bring closure to this. Let's close the book.
If you have any information on this case, please say something. I got a couple phone numbers here. You can call 207-743-8282. Is that?
I believe that's the state police.
Is that the state police?
I believe so.
Okay. That's the main state police number. Again, 207-743-8282. You can also call 1-800-THE-LOST and report any information, even if it's anonymous at this point. It's been 32 years. Let's give this old man some closure.
If you want to leave a message, even if you want to follow this case on social media, Kimberly's sisters also maintain a Facebook page. It's Kimberly Moreau Missing in J Maine.
Yep.
So you can subscribe to that.
Go onto that page. Go onto that page and read up and show your support.
Yeah, and
for a family that really, really needs it.
And please tell a friend about this podcast. And we'd like to get this out so that we can for the family and for the community to find closure in this.
And continue to help others who who are missing people, and help shed some light. Right.
That's right. That's why we're here.
Yep. All right, let's wrap this up.
That's right.
Thank you for listening to Stories from the Shed, guys. Find us on social media. Our Facebook is Stories from...
Oh, I just want to thank you guys for having me on the show.
Oh, yeah, you'll be back.
No
Had
problem.
a good time.
You'll be back.
Thanks for coming in. This is
Sad
fun.
story, but informative.
If you have a story you want to share with us, too, feel free to just, hey, I got this. Let's talk about this on the show. All right, we'll make time.
Love to get you back on.
Yeah,
You guys
absolutely.
going to come in as the blind viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. We did it to you. It's only fair, right?
Yeah.
I agree.
All right. Find us on social media. Our Facebook is Stories from the Shed. Instagram, Stories from the Shed Podcast. Twitter, @StoriesFromShed. We have iMessage, sftspodcast @gmail.com for you iPhone users. iPhone Master Race. Fuck Androids. Gmail.
Fuck yo, Android.
Send us any
Shed
information.
boys.
Hey, listen. Send us any suggestions you guys have for stories, or any information, or even just drop us an email, say hi, tell us
how we
suck.
did.
Yeah, tell us we suck, tell us we did great, tell us, hey, maybe you drank too much or maybe we didn't. Our Gmail, sftspodcast @gmail.com.
I do want to say before we sign off that we want to thank you for all the feedback we've gotten so far. I know we're kind of early in our podcast, but we've gotten a lot of good feedback, and we're going to continue to improve on our quality of our show, on the stories that we're telling, and in all aspects of this.
Work with us, bear with us.
Yeah,
We're new guys starting off, and we might not always say the right things, but we mean well.
Absolutely. No negative here.
Please email us. Thank you for listening.
Have a good night, guys.
Thanks.
With music, I've been known to drink too many beers. I like to unwind with a guitar. I write a song or two from time to time. It's slow, but life will disappear. I hope it's slow, but life will